And for any startup out there, looking to make a change, disruption is that opportunity. Rarely do we all just go, oh yeah, that's a great idea, I'm going to do something new. It takes a disruption. It takes something changing beyond our normal circumstances for people to embrace. And I think, what we saw through the last 8 weeks was that level of disruption and, the opportunity for Formula One racers to turn their hand to making ventilators, and deliver on that. And certainly that we need that level of creativity and thinking to challenge our way of providing services so that we can continue to deliver the best possible result.
Hey techies, today we have with us Rebecca Tomkinson, the Chief Executive Officer of the Royal Flying Doctor Service, WA.
Rebecca is accountable for the sustainability and success of the iconic WA organisation, which provides life-saving aeromedical and primary health services to the people of Western Australia.
In this episode, we delve into how Rebecca is committed to cultivating innovation at the Royal Flying Doctor Service and has continued its commitment to the spirit of John Flynn's original aerial experiment.
Hi, how's it going?
It's really good.
Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. Love the format.
We were really pumped when we found out you'd agreed to.
It's a great pleasure. It truly is.
And we were there in the audience when Royal Flying Doctor Service won the Mal Bryce Award.
Yeah, exceptional privilege, Alex. And we are so very, very proud to be sharing such a stage with an extraordinary group of innovators and leaders. And I'm sure that for a few people, a couple of raised eyebrows, but I love to talk about the fact that, we're an original tech startup.
Yes.
We're 92 years old and, people don't often think about that, but
that's amazing.
We've kept innovating and, that first set of funding to really get the idea up and off the ground, pardon the pun, was huge. So, and that took 10 years, which is not an uncommon story for startups. So hopefully that'll keep people motivated as well.
Well, I think that's the big misunderstanding people have about startups. They only find out when they win awards.
That's right? That just happens. You wake up one morning and you've got yourself a startup and $100 million buy-in from Google, right?
That'd be nice.
Yeah. We're all aiming for that.
Was it a surprise to you at the time to win that award?
I think it was very humbling. We are very proud of the work that we've done and we genuinely, to provide the information for the awards, felt that it was a very important story to tell and one that isn't often associated with, you don't think about a 90-year-old organisation being innovative or being a tech leader, but our aircraft, the Rio Tinto Lifelight PC-24s, we took numbers 5 and 6 off the global production line, and we are the very first to bring them into the Southern Hemisphere. We're the first to use them in Australian airspace, so we needed to do all of the regulatory approvals process through CASA. Then we needed to write the operating manuals. We needed to write the servicing manuals. Indeed, we needed to use and create the capability for the technology. So that the back of that aircraft is designed with West Australian technology and it has been brought to the world. So, the stretcher loading device that we have in the back was the back of a garage 15 years ago, developed, and now leads the world as a turnkey solution for aeromedical retrieval, so much so that Sweden has ordered 6 of the PC-24s.
Wow.
So
amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is. And our clinicians and engineers are the ones, leading that development.
And I wasn't aware of this at all until you won that award, I must admit. It didn't, it definitely surprised me. And I was, even before I kind of investigated the PC-24, I was actually really excited that you won that award.
Thank you.
Well, as people get very fussy about the word technology, but just
great point.
But just the fact that you're a flying doctor service to me is an attachment to technology.
Look, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that it's really wonderful for people to connect with that because, as you say, you know, technology is so many different things. And we don't send a Band-Aid, you know, we send a plane to the most remote areas in the world. As a solution to ensuring that there's health equity across this vast distance, you know, and that was a concept, that original startup, you know, 102 years ago, because we mark 92 years as our first flight. But of course, that original concept took 10 years to get off the ground. So the fact that technology, you know, when you think about it, the communications platform was developed for us. So not only was it important to find a aviation platform, but we had to be able to communicate across different channels. So the pedal radio comes out of that. And when you think about the pedal radio moving Morse code and then to the iPhones that we have today, it's just incredible how much that word innovation and technology means, because it is so many different evolving pieces.
So can you tell us more about Royal Flying Doctor Service as an innovator and what that means to you? I know that's like a really open-ended question, but...
So perhaps if I could start by sharing that here in WA, we look after all 2.5 million square kilometres, and we do that over 5 different bases, and we operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we work from Broome, Port Hedland, Meekatharra, Kalgoorlie, and our Jandakot base, which is also our administration centre. We'll do a little over 20 flights today. Wow. And we'll transfer about 24 patients. The difference between us and a commercial aviation entity is we don't know where we're going to go or how we're going to get there. And we do and make those plans as they're needed. So our pilots might take off thinking they're heading to Albany and end up in Esperance that day, because that's where the most important patient need is. So we do 20 flights, but we do that on an ongoing basis, and we're constantly reviewing to ensure that we have the right patient capability mixed with the right clinicians on board. We'll also take a little over 50,000 calls through our call centre. Wow. So you can actually contact us through a direct 1-800 number. You can come through the health system itself, or you can contact us through our medical chests, which are the true first innovators. So before we did all the aeroplanes, we had this very important concept of being able to stabilise a patient in field. So what John Flynn really had at the forefront was, how could we provide first response care? And he came up with the concept of a medical chest, which I call a first aid kit on steroids, because it's got extra capability with it. It has antibiotics. It has the ability to contact a doctor. So you phone directly and a doctor will talk you through what's in the medical chest and how best to stabilise Rebecca when you find her in the field. And we've got more than 4,500 of those chests throughout Australia. So it's quite an incredible technological story, and one that keeps evolving. So the next step for those medical chests, of course, is what technology will do in being able to put an iPad and to teleconference in. So, you know, the first idea was, imagine phoning a doctor to talk to them about what was in the chest to help stabilise you in field. And now we'll be able to take that with the use of technology to being able to see, like I can each of you, in different locations and talk to the doctor about what's in the medical chest and how to be able to stabilise that person until further help can arrive.
Which is massive.
It is. Yeah. It's huge.
Actually, being able to see what someone is doing is a lot easier to assist them than just over the phone.
Well, yeah, That's right. And of course, the more information we can. So again, imagine being able to put a sensor, and they talk about an iPhone now having more sensor capability on your person, being able to tell your heart rate and being able to send through vital statistics. And imagine if we could capture that with our medical chests, and the doctor could be able to assess that information coming through and actually be able to talk to you, or be able to body cam in this scene around you to also show what other resources would be needed to support other people in an emergency or in a critical care situation.
So to bring up a pretty, I would say, tiresome subject that I'm sure you're pretty over talking about, COVID-19, how is that? How have you faced that challenge? Obviously, we've been pretty lucky in WA, and I don't think there was any regional cases. I may be wrong there, but from my
it's a very small number.
Yeah, John.
But you must have to tool up just in case, right?
Absolutely. And I think that is something that West Australians can always rely on. We are that service that you truly hope you're never going to need to use, but the one day you do, you want it to be absolutely everything it can be. And certainly we've been part of the COVID-19 story from the very beginning. So we were actually part of the team that did the transfer from the Diamond Princess out of Darwin into Perth, and we have been revising and developing our COVID-19 aeromedical protocols ever since. So we wrote those in the very first place, and they've been utilised across many different healthcare systems, and we continue to revise them, because while we have always dealt with infection control and while we've always dealt with infectious patients, we have taken that to the next level and really ensured, particularly with COVID-19, additional protocols, additional cleaning of our aircraft, additional technologies that have come into play with spraying systems, surface capture, to really ensure that we have taken infection control to the next level. We have transferred since February more than 87 suspected or confirmed COVID-19 patients, and we do that so that we're revising our PPE protocols. We've done training and curriculum development for all of our clinicians. So it's been an extraordinary 8 weeks, as I know it has been for many, many people. And it is absolutely exceptional, the work that West Australians have done to ensure that the curve has flattened. And of course, it's very important now that we maintain that level of capability and we ensure that we keep that vigilance to that social distancing protocols and our hand washing and hygiene protocols. Very important.
How has it affected your home bases, like your call centers and things like that? Everyone kind of working from home now. Was that a challenge to
It's been interesting, hasn't it? Because I think for us that we would have described ourselves as quite technologically au fait, because of course we have 4 bases regionally and our base here at Jandakot, and we're used to talking to each other in video conference formats and video conferencing into different places. But of course, what has been incredibly challenging is the importance of staying at home to do that. So we too have learned a lot about the accessibility of our technology, and we've certainly learned a lot about what it feels like to be the person that's dialing in. So quite often, someone else is dialing into your meeting, whereas for us, we're all dialing in now. So there's sort of almost an equity around the table, which has been fantastic. I'm a really proud regional West Australian, and I think what we have shown is we've just busted apart some myths that you can't live remotely and stay connected, and that you can't get a good education if you live remotely, because, well, we've just shown that, you can video conference into King's College lecture theatres now, and you can be anywhere in the world and participate in education forums, and certainly you can do the same in your day-to-day roles. So what I really hope is, and we're trying very hard here at RFDS to do that, is maintain the muscle memory. So we've learned a whole new heap of skills, and we can't stop doing that just because, the environment at the moment doesn't require it in the same way. we need to ensure that we maintain that capability and indeed actually learn from that for what else we can be doing for our team members. Because I certainly think for a lot of people, the opportunity be at home has unlocked a whole new level of productivity.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Certainly has shown a whole new way that we can engage an entirely different workforce.
And it's great to hear you have that trust for your staff as well. You know, that's it's such a big component that I think people are coming to terms with. Yeah.
Especially when you go remote. Yeah, you have to trust everyone.
You do, don't you? And I think it's been some disability advocates. It's been quite interesting as well, because obviously the accessibility in a physical disability space for a lot of workplaces has been challenging. And all of a sudden, in a little over 2 weeks, the entire almost population became work from home based. And that community is sort of saying, we've been asking for these changes for many years. And, we have shown it can be done.
That's really interesting. And no one's actually mentioned that before. I'm really surprised. That's such a good point. People with in wheelchairs and have difficulty getting from one point to another. There's no reason why they shouldn't be able to work from home. And I think you're right that this kind of change will hopefully impact them for the better, and open hiring decisions. The people doing hiring decisions open their minds to the capabilities available. Yeah, wow,
Yeah, and I think that it certainly is, we have needed to see the world differently. And indeed, the world is now different. What we knew as normal in February is very different to what we know as normal in May. And that's going to continue to evolve. And there are some really strong positives that as a community we have shown. And I know that there's lots of footage of us not at our best, but there's a whole lot of footage of people doing extraordinarily generous community spirited events and activities. And the fact that you can now join a concert and be sitting in your lounge room, the fact that you can sing and participate in that concert in real live terms just shows a whole new level of capability and accessibility. And what I love about the idea of innovation and technology is that courageousness to just try it, because we've needed to, right, to stay connected. And I think that I hope we continue with that courage, and I hope that we take what we've learned and really see how else it can be applied. And a great example for us is looking at what we can do in the back of our aircraft. So what technologies we can now bring so that we can stay connected live, and what else we can be doing with regional communities through telehealth platforms to be able to facilitate more access to essential health services.
In that space, the telehealth, because I was aware of a few services prior to COVID-19, and they didn't get much love, to be honest. And in fact, one of them that I know of went bust like 2 or 3 months before COVID-19. I was like, oof, bad timing.
Harsh.
Are you seeing, like, even just in relation to Royal Flying Doctor Service, like quite a bit of movement in that space?
So I think that the acceleration of the capability has come to the forefront because of the essential requirement to have that social distancing in place. The other really big change is the access to a Medicare provision and the ability to have a Medicare number for which clinicians can on charge the capability of the telehealth conference. So in certain spaces that wasn't accessible previously, but absolutely with the advent of COVID-19, that is something that Medicare is now able to facilitate. So, keeping that in place is going to absolutely accelerate the growth of telehealth platforms for medical practitioners. I visited my GP the other day and I did that in a telehealth format, and I'm here at Jandakot. So, I think that, it shows that there's an absolute appropriateness to the accessibility that hasn't been in place before, and that those areas will continue to grow.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that. And I'd rather do telehealth than over the phone, which is what my GP is currently doing.
Well, and I think
generation, I think.
Yeah.
Just don't like calling people.
Well, and I think that there's definitely, as the technology has, and I think that's an important conversation to have as well. Is, of course, we do need the infrastructure. I know there was adages in people's homes where everyone off Netflix now so that I can VC into work.
Yeah.
Need the bandwidth, and it is really important, that infrastructure component, and particularly in regional areas, because it shows the importance of being able to connect to technology platforms more so than ever. And certainly as that grows, then the imagery and how clearly we can see each other and what's going to be possible in a diagnostic format is getting better each and every day. The types of cameras, the types of sound systems, the types of databases that you can access in a technology sense are extraordinary. So, that imaging where you can compare an image to, a million other images that have been captured on a database to sort of find a comparison is going to continue to accelerate what's possible in healthcare.
And with that, the what is the situation in general with like internet connectivity in rural areas? Us living in the city, we complain about not getting NBN, but we don't really understand the struggle that a lot of people have out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I think that that's a lot to do with, obviously, we have an extraordinarily vast geographical distance to cover. So the way in which you can build that connection is different from many regional areas. And I know there's been a lot of work done by organisations to sort of see what satellite systems understand that there's a few drones now that actually can go and sit just above the just on the top of the atmosphere for space to be a connection for internet capability. And I think what I would say for regional areas is it's just about ensuring that there's an affordability and that there is an understanding of where that connectivity needs to stay. So, being able to use different platforms. It's obviously not possible to run wire everywhere or fibre optic everywhere, but the use of satellite technology into different spaces and the use of a new drone technology to be in place for a period of time and then can then move is also really important.
What's and not necessarily from a COVID-19 perspective, but what future kind of innovations do you see emerging in the health sector, and with a kind of focus on Royal Flying Doctor Service? What's next?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think what everyone can rely on is that we're continuing to look at what is next. So, of course, taking that original concept of a camel and Morse code to what is now in the PC-24, a emergency room in the sky with the capability of the 3 patients and the 2 medical teams. It's quite extraordinary. I sort of talk about, and just to really remind people of how crazy people thought John Flynn was when he said, I'm going to put doctors in planes and send them to regional areas to help with healthcare. We will need space retrieval. We will need health applications in space. We are looking at what the technology in drones can do regarding taking tools and equipment, medical supplies into regional areas. I think what's next for us is there's this extraordinary piece of disruption across the entire health system. So our generation is at the forefront of significant change, probably more change than ever before. And what that provides is opportunity to really look at the lateral application of technology to how it might be able to solve and address, particularly for an organisation like ours, health equity, which is really what we're after, is ensuring that regardless of your geographical location, you have the same healthcare as any other person, and that as you're travelling or living anywhere in Western Australia, we're able to provide you with that level of healthcare that you would want to rely upon. So, for us, the sky's the limit, pardon the pun. But, it really
Nice.
is about what do we see for ourselves. And if the last 8 weeks have shown us nothing else, it's that we can apply ourselves as a community and we can deliver change. Indeed, we have flattened a curve that was almost a tidal wave. And we should be really, really proud of that. And certainly continue to have the courage to show new things and to look at different applications around how we can deliver essential services.
It's there must be a bit of a frustration that we flattened it so much that you couldn't really stretch your legs into it. And
well, I guess for us, we have we've stretched, we've limbed up because we've been using our protocols and transferring people in. If you are suspected of having COVID-19, then their retrieval process is the same as if you did. So we use all the same PPE, and we use all of the same protocols and cleaning regimes for the aircraft. So we've had an opportunity through the work that we've already done. I think what's great with anything like this is we have learned an immense amount, and now we have the opportunity to apply that and to work across the broader health system. So we don't do any of our work in isolation. It's a partnership. So we work very closely with WA Country Health, who have ultimate responsibility for all 2.5 million square kilometres of WA. We're a part of a very important health provision across WA, and of course St John's, who are often the first responders, and we work closely together to do and ensure patient retrieval. You'll often see images of ambulance next to the aircraft, and sort of us working together as teams to provide services that are essential for people. So, I think what we have now is a chance to take what we've learned and continue to work together to deliver the best possible outcome for West Australians. And certainly there were moments there which were quietly terrifying, I think for everybody. And that we should never be complacent. And I think that what we need to stay, and talking to that earlier piece, is really ready, sort of game ready. So even today, I actually stepped out when I came to talk to you from an exercise that we've been running about a particular response to a COVID-19 scenario. So we're still looking at what else we might be able to deliver and provide for West Australians.
Well, I think China's just gone down into lockdown again. There's no guarantees that we're not going to go the same way. So,
well, I think, if someone had suggested to us at the end of last year that we'd be dealing with a global pandemic, everyone would have laughed.
Except for Bill Gates, quickly.
Apparently, well,
yeah, sorry.
No, such a benchmark, right?
Yeah.
To have that level of foresight to, create Microsoft, that would be great for all of us. But point taken, though, should have listened, I think, is what he's sharing with us. And certainly, we really won't know normal again in the way that we did, because, what it has shown us is, as I say, how we live and how we work, and what that involves, and, what we know we can. So, for instance, all of the Tomkinsons can live in the same house. Who knew? There's actual sort of ability to co-create and share in a co-working space that, we would never have thought possible had we not been, that such an important part of social isolation to, really stay within that space. So in looking, I agree, it's quite possible that, there still will be in other areas. And, I know the East Coast is still dealing with discrete breakouts in different places. And certainly as a community, we need to be able to prepare and ensure that, we're ready.
What kind of challenges do you think Royal Flying Doctor Service will face as these kind of societal changes go about?
Yeah, a lot. So, there's the challenge of the pace of change. So I think in
Yeah.
particularly that early few weeks where there was just almost hourly information updates and changes, and being able to build the resilience and agility to knowing that part of our new normal is a constant rate of change. And I think as humans, we're sort of looking for that consistent, and understandably so. But what we see now is the emergence of a rapid rate of change, and and that impacting all areas of the way that we work and live. So, for instance, with COVID-19, it wasn't just our day-to-day jobs, but it was also our home environment, our broader families, indeed our global families, into how we would stay connected, and the things that we would take for granted, like being able to, jump on a plane and go and see a East Coast relative or an overseas relative has fundamentally changed. So as a service for us, it's really looking after our people and providing as much information as often as we can, particularly in those early weeks of COVID, about everything we knew. And because we are so connected as a global community, a lot of the information that we were getting was coming in real time from somewhere else in the world. So, being able to assess what's fact, what's fiction, what's fake news, what's proper news is really challenging. And of course, when you've got that much information constantly for our team members, it's really important to be able to provide a single source of truth, and for people to be able to rely on the information that we're providing, and being able to build resilience for our team members.
And a nice filter and benchmark, because it can be very fatiguing.
Yeah. And you need intelligence that you can act upon. And
that's right, John.
If there's too much data, too much information, you suddenly have more work cut out for you, just filtering out the stuff you don't want to listen to. I think it's the opposite from past pandemics, which, the ones before the internet was invented. Information traveled at different speeds back then.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And that the access that we have to information, I know we see sometimes as an immense strength, but to absolutely your point, it can be really damaging. And as I say, literally real time information coming through out of context can be incredibly damaging to people. And being able to understand what is good to apply, and what needs further review, and of course with anything, just being able to do that due diligence is really important. Absolutely agree with you. Yeah.
So to quickly segue into back into innovation, which is far more interesting than COVID-19, I think. As a real driver for change and innovation in, like you said, an organization with a lot of legacy, what challenges did you face? Without kind of naming names and shaming any roadblocks, but it must have been quite a challenge to ask people to maybe think outside the box.
Yeah, it's definitely when you're bringing anything new, people understandably want to get to know it first. And I mean, I talk about the introduction of the PC24s as not a single part of our organisation that didn't change as a result of that new capability. So everything from how we trained our pilots, how our nurses and doctors worked in the back of the aircraft, through to the technology and how we provide data linkages, to how we tell our story in a fundraising space. Every single aspect of our organisation changed overnight. So being able to,
Sorry, I was going to say, you almost went from the Royal Flying Doctor Service to the Royal Flying Hospital Service, in a sense.
Yeah, I love that. We're going to use that, Alex. We are Royal Flying Hospital Service. You will have heard it here first. And indeed, that's absolutely true. And of course, everyone thinks that when they're implementing something new, that it's the best thing that we could possibly do. But of course, that experience for people often isn't the case. Like, we literally changed overnight our operating procedures. We changed our network configuration. We changed the type of aircraft that, you know, we operated in, and we lifted that level of capability. So as fantastic as that is for our patients, and that's always what we're about, is what is in the best interest of our patients. It's challenging for our people because there is a lot of change that comes with that. We also took aircrafts 5 and 6 off the global production line, brought it into Australian airspace for the very first time. So we worked with regulators, we worked with healthcare providers, indeed we worked with flight training organisations to be able to put in place how we did this. So, you know, we genuinely are the very first to use the aircraft for aeromedical retrieval work anywhere in the world.
It's amazing. And
everything we did was for the first time. And, you know, like anything anyone does for the first time, it's always harder first, and then the more we learn, the easier that becomes. And for that first group of people who needed to do all that development and needed to forge those pathways, there's an immense amount of change and time and energy to achieve that. Now we just kind of think about it as what we do every day.
It's a day job.
At the moment, yeah. And COVID-19, just to segue back for a sec, will do the same thing. You know, that's what this rapid rate of change and learning and knowledge does. And indeed, you know, I was going to show my age for your listeners, but, you know, one of the holdouts to what is this mobile phone, you know, situation, and even in the late 90s still kind of, you know, with a flip phone, to being one of the last to get an iPhone, when I couldn't live without it now, you know, that sort of sense of how dramatically the world has changed in such a short period of time. Even just, you know, technology used to be something you went and did, and now it's a part of who we are on a daily basis. You know, the iPhone is with us. It's not something that I go to, it lives with me, you know. And I think that change alone is quite significant for our workplaces as well.
I think we've essentially become cyborgs. It's just not, you know, in science fiction, they're always kind of melded into your flesh, but now it just lives on your hand.
Yeah, and I probably shouldn't say that, you know, not yet, right? Because the idea of actually having an iPhone when, you know, I had my flip phone, which was the coolest thing ever.
Was it a Brazza?
Unfortunately. It's not even a cool one. But to now, you know, I think that's just it, is we almost can't conceptualize for our own selves just how quickly things are emerging and changing. And just what's possible. And while that's in equal parts incredibly exciting, it's, you know, almost terrifying as well as to just how much we are, you know, going to need to adapt and evolve, and, you know, stay agile to, you know, what our workplaces will need from us.
I think past generations got to have their own appetite for change. And you know, a lot of big changes were often deferred for older generations. You know, they just avoided them, and people just kind of went, it's fine. But I don't think people have that opportunity anymore. You know, once a big change hits, everything changes so rapidly, and everyone needs to be maybe not right on the forefront, because I think that's exhausting in itself. But you know, keeping up with the changes, and that must be for someone in your position a constant responsibility you have to keep track of. And are you sharing like the IP you've created with the PC-24s? Are you sharing that with organizations that are now using them? And like, do you get information coming back as well? Like, is there a global effort there kind of thing?
Yeah, there is a global effort, and to start off with, the central section of the RFDS, so it looks after the Northern Territory and South Australia. They also have PC24, and they're bringing in an additional PC24 in June, which will be really exciting, which means there'll be 4 in aeromedical configuration in Australia. And we work together with the information and the systems and the processes that we have to ensure that we're really continuing to deliver best practice and to share and learn. And Pilatus to ensure with the emergence of the new capability actually has a team member here with us in WA who works full time here at Jandakot with our engineering team. So that's another part of the story for us, is that we do all our own engineering and service support work here at our Jandakot base, and have an incredible team of engineers who have really led the world with the engineering and serviceability of the PC24. And we are in real time developing that with Pilatus. So I talk a lot about our PC12s. They are a standard configuration of charter aircraft, and in that space they might do on average globally across their fleet about 300 hours a year. We do 1,500 hours on our airframes for our PC12s every year. And the PC24s in their first 12 months of service did over 1,000 engine hours each, which is quite an incredible achievement in aviation terms. And so certainly sharing the information that we have and the processes that we use and what we're learning is really important to the aviation community.
And that's a story no one really thinks about. You obviously think about the doctors because that's the life-saving part, but someone actually has to
fix the plane.
Yeah. Keep the plane flying. The maintenance engineers
make the IT work, right?
IT as well.
Yeah, and of course in a time frame of yesterday, because our aeromedical capability is so critical to the service that we deliver, that we do our engineers work in overtime and in different environments, regardless of where it is, because again, it's like anything, if something's going to needs to be fixed, it's usually in the most challenging of circumstances, and never when you can predict that. And fortunately for us, of course, we have such a significant maintenance program that those events are rare for us, but they do happen. And our team is amazing at the way in which we look after our aircraft, and how we ensure that that quality and safety is at the forefront of everything that we are doing. And certainly it's an entire team effort. So from our operations team, so we have a coordinations and logistics function, through to our doctors and our nurses, our pilots, our engineers, indeed our fundraising team, our finance function, our HR team. It's a huge team effort that comes together to deliver for patients in WA. And I think again that that's our driving part. We're always interested in what we can deliver for people living, working and travelling in regional areas. And what our service ensures is that you can rely on the fact that there is going to be healthcare there when you need it. And we keep looking at new ways to do that. And, we started with the camel and the Morse code, and we've built all the way to the hospital in the sky. I'm really liking that. And, again, we hope that you never have to use that, but it's like, it is very important to know that it is there. And I think that's a beautiful reflection for Australians everywhere, that it's still quintessential to who we are to look after each other. And Absolutely. We've seen that with the flattening of the curve. Like, everyone just stepped up and went, right, how are we going to do this? And we have, we've delivered together. And I know that we'll continue to do that.
Well, I bravely stayed home.
Awesome,
So
Alex.
it's a heroic effort.
It's important and underappreciated in certain circumstances, because you're just never too sure how we had a co-working environment at our home, and I was apparently too loud as a co-worker, and we had to implement some co-working rules. So I think it's been a really interesting experience for many West Australians, and I'm certainly not minimalising that. That hasn't always been positive for people, and certainly we should be very proud of coming together to do the best we can to look after each other.
Agreed. Yeah, I think from a global perspective, WA has a lot to be proud of, and I think the Royal Flying Doctor Service is another a thing we should be very proud of. And you mentioned fundraising. How do kind of everyday Western Australians invest in Royal Flying Doctor Service? And then a lot of our listeners are actually business owners. So what can a business owner do to help the Royal Flying Doctor Service?
We really love that so many West Australians are incredibly generous for us, and indeed we rely on that generosity to provide our service. So it does make a big difference, and certainly staying connected on our social channels, and being able to connect with us via email. So you can email us at fundraise@rfdswa.com.au, and that way we can keep you updated with the information that we have about our service and some of the stories. So again, it's such an extraordinary privilege to lead an organisation. Wherever I go, people want to say thank you and connect with our amazing team. And certainly there's a story of a brother's, sister's, cousin's mum who we've helped, and it's incredibly humbling to be a part of that. And people shouldn't underestimate just how significant the work that many community members do. Everything from a community barbecue. There's a beautiful mural in Esperance that the Esperance Auxiliary fundraised for us to provide funding for our service, and the mural itself recognises what we've been doing over the last 90 years, and it's just beautiful to see. And certainly people do events, and obviously not as much of that at the moment. Indeed, this week was the Gibb challenge, which is a mountain bike race on the Gibb River Road in Western Australia, and that would have taken place this week, but unfortunately it can't. But people have still fundraised for us, and we're still receiving funding for that, and people, that makes a huge difference. We're trying different formats to keep connected. So one of those is a video story, and really showing what a difference you make by staying connected.
I think we'll drop a link right here as well.
That'd be wonderful.
It's such an important service, and I've got I grew up in the city, but my family all grew up regional. Come from farming stock, so there
we are.
And there's stories of the Royal Flying Doctor Service saving people's lives who would otherwise just be stranded.
Yeah, and I do think it comes back to who we are as people, and certainly the ability to look after each other is just fundamental to staying connected, and I know that technology is often sort of shouted out as not helping us actually remember how we connect and how to talk to each other, and I actually disagree. I think it's an extraordinary platform to share those stories and to be able to look at one another in this format, and indeed being able to stay connected in places I can dial into, see a family wherever they are in the world in a way that I would never have been able to do before. So it is remarkable, and certainly our service really represents that, and as I say, one that hopefully people don't have to use but it's just so extraordinary that it's still here 92 years on, continuing to grow and innovate and provide a level of access that is the very best we can do.
And no one has ever doubted that. which for a 92-year-old organization is a great track record.
Isn't it?
So what's going to happen on the 100th year?
Yeah. So we've just launched a new strategic plan, which actually talks about beyond the next century, John.
Cool.
So
Very cool.
I'll have to drop you a link to that one as well, because, we're very proud of the fact that it is about what is next, that constant journey for our patients to really ensure that their experience is the best it can be, and that we're continuing to lead the world with remote healthcare and doing that in partnership with other organisations. So I'm quite serious when I say that, for us, looking at what the application of drone technology can do, that example of the medical chest and the connectivity through an iPad and a sensor chip, and being able to do real-time diagnostics in the field is incredibly important to extending our primary health footprint. So, that's another part of our service that people might not be aware of, is that we actually do run primary health services. We take GPs to remote areas all throughout Western Australia and provide essential healthcare that way. So the next century is just whatever we can imagine for ourselves, really. And I think, again, in a way that it has never been before, is we still haven't fully seen the emergence of just what technology will do. And being able to embrace it as it comes along is critically important. So, not
Definitely.
being afraid to, try and deliver our services differently. So that's exciting.
I think Royal Flying Doctor Service is really lucky to have someone at its helm that actually thinks beyond the outside the box, to be cliche. It'd be so easy just to keep doing things as they've been done. And it's really, really cool.
And I think that John Flynn would be disappointed in us. I think many people, and, for your listeners as well, would tell them that, that idea is crazy, or, why would you want to do that? Or, that could never possibly fly. And, I tell a really important story about when John Flynn finally did receive funding. It was actually a bequest from Hugh Mackay of the Sunshine Harvester fame. And he actually wrote that check out to John Flynn's aeromedical experiment. Right? No one thought it would work.
I love that.
Sounds like venture capital.
Doesn't it?
Just taking a risk, yeah.
Yeah, and we did take a huge risk. And 90 years on, we're still working with the whole community to look at how else we can deliver on that promise, that mantle of safety that he wanted to hold so close for all Australians, that you would have access to a service when you needed it most, regardless of where you lived. And Governor Beazley here in WA actually did a very lovely presentation for us on our 90th birthday, and he talked about the tyranny of distance. And, again, you would think that the older we are, the better that's become, but in some ways distance is more than ever a challenge for all of us. So, still today, 90 years on, it is so important to bridge the gap between how we live in cities and remote areas, and we still are able to deliver on that. And the next century will take us to the next level, and maybe even space. I'm sure that's what they'll talk about for the second century, right?
Yeah, you need shuttles to handle Mars colonies and all that too. So
yeah,
that'll be very cool.
It will be. So you heard it here first.
Yeah, exactly.
A Royal Flying Doctor Service base on the moon.
Moon base, yeah.
Well, and as not crazy as that sounds, it's certainly the same concept that John Flynn was talking to 90 years ago. People would have thought of that in the same light, that is just so far-fetched. Yet we still now have that flying hospital.
Yeah.
I love that story, the aeromedical experiment. That's brilliant,
isn't it? And for any startup out there, looking to make a change, disruption is that opportunity. Rarely do we all just go, oh yeah, that's a great idea, I'm going to do something new. It takes a disruption. It takes something changing beyond our normal circumstances for people to embrace. And I think, what we saw through the last 8 weeks was that level of disruption and, the opportunity for Formula One racers to turn their hand to making ventilators, and deliver on that. And certainly that we need that level of creativity and thinking to challenge our way of providing services so that we can continue to deliver the best possible result.
And what you said about tyranny of distance is so true, and technology is continually helping us bridge that gap in services. And I really like what you said about COVID-19 proving that people in the region, people who live regionally shouldn't be excluded from great education, and they shouldn't be excluded from medical assistance as well.
Absolutely. And certainly, country communities do both of those things incredibly well anyway. But, what these last few weeks has shown us is that we can really be anywhere in the world and even indeed live in that country community too, which is the other side of this, right? Is being able to share those experiences with others and being able to show different styles of life that bring everybody together. So, for me, I really hope that, what we've learned over the last 8 weeks, taking that very strong positive around what working from home can provide, that indeed it's an absolutely legitimate place to deliver and can be incredibly productive, that we continue to build on that. And hopefully, again, we never have to use it, but doesn't mean we shouldn't practice doing it.
Well, I think COVID-19 has proved that it is a thing that humanity will just continue experiencing until we are kind of superhumans with
consciousness uploaded into the cloud. That'll take care of it. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait till the Royal Flying Doctor Service wins another Innovator award for your drones that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Soon.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. And we will absolutely make sure that we bring that to you first and show you what we're doing in that technology.
I'll hold you to that.
Yep. Done.
Thanks so much, Rebecca.
Pleasure, gentlemen. Thanks so much for your time. It's been lovely.
Yeah, real pleasure to meet you. And hopefully we'll be able to meet in person at the next Inside Awards that happens in a room rather than
virtually.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, and I'm looking to extend an invitation to please come and have a look at our facilities. And perhaps when you do that, we can work with the team and make it a virtual experience. So, perhaps we could, you could do that while you're here, and we could upload it as this is how it looks to be here. So,
oh wow, that would be brilliant.
Yeah. So, just encourage you. I know we can't at the moment, but when those restrictions lift and change to come out and come and have a look, and let's look at a way that we can put that online for people to be able to be a part of what we do here each day as well.
Definitely.
That would be fantastic. I would love to be a part of that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you
All
both.
right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Take care.
Yeah.
See ya.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Tech Society. As always, check us out at techsociety.fm and we'll meet you in the next episode.